only thing that's unusual about Britney Spears' story is that people are paying attention to it.
If the conservatorship process can deprive someone like Miss Spears of her fundamental liberties, then what chance does the average American have?
Some bipartisan support there for Britney Spears' legal freedom. And now, to news on that front, tonight, a California judge has just ruled to formally suspend Spears' controversial father, Jamie, as the pop star's conservator. That means he does not control her money or life anymore on a legal basis. A certified public accountant has been appointed, and that's still to be ruled on whether to terminate this conservatorship in its entirety. The star's many fans were outside the courthouse cheering her on, as well as online. There's been a lot of attention here, and she spoke out publicly for the first time in late June, detailing her exploitive 13-year conservatorship and where she had really recounted how her father controlled way too much of her life. She described being in denial, shocked, traumatized, and said, quote, "I'm depressed. I cry every day. The people who did that to me should not be able to walk away so easily." Now, what changed was she was allowed to hire her own lawyer, who then basically replaced a court-appointed one. Now they're calling for an investigation into Jamie Spears. Meanwhile, damning new revelations that Spears was monitoring the daughter's communications of Miss Spears, alleging that he secretly recorded audio from her bedroom, her conversations with her boyfriend and her children. Since June, there have been 3 different documentaries chronicling Britney's plight, including a new one on Netflix.
Britney's never had one person she could trust. Not mom, not dad.
Britney had a fear that her family would barge in and take everything.
What was going on inside the conservatorship? And why was she still in one if she was, quote, okay?
There was financial incentives for Jamie, for the lawyers.
I've represented dozens of conservatees in court. Not one of them has ever had a job.
Britney made other people a lot of money.
We are now joined by that director of the Netflix documentary, Britney versus Spears, Erin Lee Carr. Thanks for being here. Your reaction to this legal news?
I mean, it's incredible. This is what Britney has been asking for. We saw in 2008, 2009, I do not want my father to be my conservator. And now we are in 2021, and Judge Brenda Penny has finally suspended Jamie Spears from being her conservator.
When you profile a lot of this, it gives a bit more humanity than people might have known about from just the headlines. I want to play briefly from your doc voicemail that Britney left for a lawyer.
I just wanted to make sure during the process of ending the conservatorship that my father didn't suffer harm because he'll take my children away. I just want to be guaranteed that there is no harm in the process of you guys taking care of everything.
You really studied and profiled how this works legally. I bring to you the point from, of all people, Senator Ted Cruz. If this can happen to someone like Miss Spears, what happens to regular people with less visibility and money?
Yeah, that was a question that we asked ourselves time and time again. But, from my personal opinion, I think Miss Spears was targeted because she is Britney Spears. The fame, the wealth, and, her documented issues in 2008, 2009 were a reason to get her in the conservatorship. What is unusual is that there's a lot of people that have mental health struggles, and you know what? They're not put into a conservatorship. And a question that I, thought over and over again is, would this happen to a young male pop star? And I think this is so individual to Britney, but for me, on a global scale, it's about silencing powerful women. She was and is one of the most powerful women that exists in her class of artists, and yet she had her father, as a 39-year-old woman, deciding what she wanted to do with her life. If she wanted to go to a hamburger, restaurant, she would have to call and ask her dad. So we're talking about really, really intense restrictions.
I've got about 40 seconds until Joy Reid. Do you think the courts show any awareness of that type of sexism, or do they see this as a one-off? This is just about a particular star not aware.
In researching and reporting out this film for 2.5 years, it really showed that, the court and the probate system in California, they're going to play this by the book. And people who are in conservatorships are usually the infirmed or the elderly. And so when Britney spoke in June 23rd, 2021, they weren't even sure if it was going to be recorded. Britney was the one that said, I want this to be out there. In fact, she had said this in 2019. So our film, Britney versus Spears, is the whole story, not just the last year and what has happened, but really, that she had been asking for this from the very beginning.
Yeah, and you mentioned what people understand about it, as well as the sexism and the particulars of her case. Some of the storytelling around this also definitely put scrutiny on a system that wasn't working for her, as evidenced by the new ruling. So really interesting to get your perspective as a filmmaker. Erin Lee Carr, thank you. And thanks to everyone for watching The Beat. The Readout with Joy Reid starts right now. Hello, Joy.
How you doing, Ari? Free Britney. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. All right, everybody, good evening. We're covering developments on Capitol Hill as Democrats push to avoid a government shutdown and pass Biden's economic agenda. There's also breaking news from the January 6th committee, which just in the last hour issued 11 new subpoenas seeking documents and depositions from people involved in planning and organizing some of the events and rallies leading up to the insurrection. But we begin the readout tonight with Republican extremism. The party has long since surrendered any semblance of a soul that it once might have had to the pernicious influence of the anti-democratic and profligate spending former guy.